There's a bill, the housing bill, for want of a better description. It's been referred to as that people before profit, etc., have introduced. I just want to let you all know, this is one of the last planks on the Communist Manifesto to be introduced into Ireland, and I have very little doubt that it will be passed, because they'll dress it up in the nicest possible language. I've been telling people this for 20 years. It's all about language, folks. They've been changing the definition of words and altering their true meaning over time. Now, and I know a lot of people have a pain in their arse listening to me banging on about the 1937 Constitution. I get it. I do. I understand. But I'm just going to tell you this. I'm just going to explain this one to you. Even if they do somehow manage to get that bill through, it shouldn't actually go through, because it should be referred to the Council on State and others, because it's actually against the preamble and the articles of the Constitution. And here's how. And a lot of people seem to miss this about the preamble of the Constitution. In 1966-67, the Law Reform Commission, essentially I think they tried to work very hard to make it appear as if the preamble was not an essential part of the Constitution. They discovered effectively that it was, and they couldn't do without it. Not only is the preamble part of the Constitution, it's what creates the Constitution, if you will. Without the preamble, there is no Constitution. All the articles fade away. So, the preamble, it mentions the common good. Now, people before profit mentioned the common good in this piece of legislation, or whoever assembled it, whoever the hell it was. Some lefty loon bag, in my opinion. Communist. And what they've actually done is the left and the far right have actually joined forces. I hear a lot of people talk about the far right in Ireland. They're shouting at the far right, and the newspapers are all shouting at the far right. Everybody's the far right. Actually, folks, what happened was the far right and the far left have joined. And anybody who objects gets labelled far right, and anybody who's on board gets called left. The lefties have become fascist, communist fascists, socialist, communist fascists. That's what they've become. They've done this through the use of language. So you'll hear them talk about the common good. I can't be clearer than this, than the preamble of the Constitution of Ireland, 1937 version. I know lots of people have lots of things to say about versions of constitutions, etc., but this is the one that everybody is operating on, shall we say, in the mainstream and in 99.99% of the land known as Ireland. So the preamble says, the common good. To promote the common good so that the dignity and freedom of the individual may be assured, not the collective. The people before profit, or whoever else was involved in this legislation, is talking about the common good from their communist perspective. And in communism, the individual does not matter a jot. The only thing that matters is group membership, or perceived group membership. And they will annihilate individuals. They will mow them down like they're grass. They do not care. The individual does not matter. And of course, until it's their individual ass being put up against the wall and shot, then it seems to matter. Up to that point, it doesn't matter. The bit all the lefties are missing is communism is not this warm, fuzzy, utopian New World Order. It's actually a royal aristocracy. Stalin did not eat the pig swill the people had to eat. None of these world leaders from these so-called communist, socialist countries ate the pig's will that the people had to survive on. They still lived in mansions. They were effectively aristocracy, kings and queens. It was not communism, you might say. It was not true communism. Well, yes, it actually is. That's what communism is. It's one person decides, one individual decides, and everybody gets painted with that brush. And that's all there is to it. The preamble of the Irish Constitution was written very specifically that way. Very, very specifically. I've put up some posts down below, please go have a look at them, about Hearn in particular, a Waterford man who is Ireland's Thomas Jefferson, he's referred to. All the judges used to admire this man and admire the fact that he was such an amazing wordsmith, as the De Valera and others. And that was put into the Constitution, if you read his writings, specifically so the venom of communism could not infect Ireland. That's why it was put in there. See, me, Ben Gilroy, others, and many of you watching, we recognise and we defend the rights of the most abused on the planet, and that is the rights of the individual. We do not believe in trampling on the individual rights of anybody. That's why we're considered an enemy to communism and socialism, because they do not give a flying F-U-C-K about the individual's rights. Unless you're part of a group, but only because you're part of a group or perceived group. That's where all the transgender, it's really not transgender, it's transhumanism, folks. They're trying to remove you from being considered an individual human being. They want you viewed as part of a collective. Just, you're part of the human collective. That's all they see. See, they manage collectives and they manage groups. Individuals can't be managed like that. And I put a post the other day saying, look, followers don't think, and thinkers don't follow. And we all have to become thinkers. And I know it's hard. I know it's difficult. It's very difficult, in fact. Particularly when everybody else on the planet is being encouraged not to think. They want you to, oh, just look, you vacate your responsibilities to your family, your children, your parents, and that's what this housing bill is about. At the moment, it's about your parents. It will become about you eventually, because essentially what they're saying is they have the right to delimit private property. They don't. The Constitution is very clear in the Preamble as well. They do not have that right. But they're going to try to convince you that they do. Now, if they manage to convince you that they do, the only way then to defeat this would be to take a constitutional challenge against this legislation. And of course, many of you know what will happen there. Most people won't have the wherewithal to take such a challenge. Those that do may get hoodwinked in the courts. They'll get tricked by procedure. They'll get, annihilated by some sharp practice. Sorry, I was getting a call there. So, this is kind of a last-ditch effort. This is the last of the 10 planks of the Communist Manifesto being put into place in Ireland. I've been telling people this for 20-odd years. Many people listened, many didn't. Many got bent out of shape over which constitution was better, which constitution should they be using, who's sovereign, who's not, can you apply for your sovereignty, where, look. Here it is in a nutshell, folks. I recognise you, the viewer, as an individual, sovereign human being. And I'm assuming you respect and acknowledge the same about me. And I do not believe I have the right to trample upon your rights. And therefore you can't possibly have the right to trample upon mine. You see, the problem with a lot of this is we're not being very reasonable people these days, folks. A lot of us are greedy, stupid sons of bitches. A lot of us. And we're working against each other. And we're making speeches and declarations and, quite frankly, not thinking about our wording. The one thing I always recognised from the very get-go was how you word things is essential, important and vital. And if you do not command your language, others will. And they will use your lack of linguistic ability against you. And to do that, they do it for a reason, because they want to strip you of what you perceive to be your rights. See, they can't actually strip you of your rights. They can only strip you of the perception of your rights. Well, it's like they can't, legally, a man cannot become a woman, lawfully rather, or physically, or in any other way. But they want you to believe and accept that they can. And quite frankly, if you're dumb enough to do that, well, they're going to say, well, great, these people are morons. They're morons. If I can convince you a man is a woman and a woman is a man, I can convince you night is day and day is night. I can convince you you don't have the right to have a roof over your head. You don't have the right to eat a certain amount. You don't have the right to move from A to B. You don't have the right to roam about creation as you see fit, 15-minute cities, all of that jazz. But you always do. Now you see, then they also go and convince the people that they employ, the so-called civil servants. They convince them. And that's your biggest problem. If they convince them and they police it, and they force it and foist it upon you, as we found out during the lockdown, many of us, then what? I mean, I had a situation. The guard essentially lied to the court. I felt I could prove to the court, no problem, that he was lying. And I had Ben Gilroy as my witness. I used the video evidence supplied by a lefty loon bag, quite frankly. And but the judge asked Ben in the stand about the situation, and eventually he turned out, he said to Mr. Gilroy, "Oh, are you being a smart arse, Mr. Gilroy?" And Gilroy, Ben, true to form, says, "Yes, Judge, I was being a smart arse." So then the judge all of a sudden decided, well, there was no case to answer, there was no breach of the COVID guidelines. But that wasn't true. That wasn't true. According to them, technically, there was a breach of the COVID guidelines. But he didn't want to say, well, actually, I've just caught the guard here in the court lying. He's breaching his oath of office, therefore he should have been vacated immediately. There should have been a very serious investigation. That guy should have been struck off as a Garda immediately. Because if we let little things like that go with the people who are supposed to maintain the integrity of our social contracts with each other, and the social contract with the so-called apparent state, if we allow that, before you know it, you're killing the unborn, you're euthanizing the elderly, boys are girls, girls are boys, or neither, tomato, tomato, up is down, your rights are gone, that's it, kaput. I mean, part of me also often wonders, are we as well to just let that happen? Should I just say nothing and just watch it all unfold? I mean, I know how to conduct myself in life. You know, I can take care of most issues peacefully. But ask yourself, do you? Do you know how to take care of your issues? They're going to teach your children all sorts of things if you give them to them. When I was in school, I was taught boys or girls were different. Boys and girls were different. I was taught not to hit girls. Quite painfully, actually, at one stage. I had to allow a girl to hit me about 4 or 5 times in front of the teacher. I wasn't allowed to raise my hand. It's lunacy, folks. It's absolute lunacy. But please don't believe me. Go read the 10 planks. Just go to Google, Wikipedia, whatever. 10 planks of the Communist Manifesto. Read them. Tell me which ones are not in place. This is the last one. This is the last one. If they get this into place, we're screwed. There's going to be a one world government, folks. It's been happening and been brought about for a long, long time. It's inevitable, probably. But there's still a choice. What type of one world government do you want to have? Do you want to have one that respects the sovereign individual or the group above all else? Which is it? Because that's your choice. Your choice is you either go for the group, the collective, or the individual. Now, the reason the Americans and Jefferson and, as I say, Hearn for the Irish Constitution, the reason they chose the individual was because they knew, well, if you protect the individual, you are automatically protecting the group. Automatically. It's A flows to B. But if you protect the group only, you can do as you please to the individual. I know people who thought for years that the courts and the Gardaí was a straight up system, and this is what most people think. And they all think that until one day something happens to them and they're in court and they know damn well the guard is lying or the solicitor's lying or somebody's lying. They know damn well. And they're shocked. And they can't believe it. Their illusions crash down around their feet because they believed all along. All these people complaining about corruption in the guards and all of this stuff. No, it's all nonsense. Until it's them. And these people would probably be voting for all these collective policies and ignoring the most vital part of the Irish Constitution 1937 that was created, and that is the Preamble, folks. Please, 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 go read the Preamble. It's at the top of my page there. I put it up, that section. If you allow that to be destroyed, that's the last chink in the armour, folks. That's really it. There's nothing left after that. Nothing left. Because what they will claim is they're swapping their version of the common good under the Irish Constitution, which is for the individual. They're going to swap it out for the communist version of the common good, which is how all the atrocities in history have happened. From royalty to despots and tyrants. It's kind of like being the head of a family. All right? I'm a family man. I have children. I'm a grandfather. Married 30 odd years. 30 years, something like that. Yeah, actually 30 years this year. And I'm essentially in charge of my household with my wife. We share the responsibilities, of course, but there's times I have to say it has to be X, Y, or Z, and that's it. And I can't operate my family as a dictator. No man can. But I can't operate it as a communist either. If you try to have communism in your family, folks, you'll tear it apart. This is why they destroyed the family unit down through the years. They've absolutely decimated it. It's all been done on purpose. All of it. The system is not broken, folks. The system has been hijacked and utilised and changed. And by... I don't know if they're actually evil in the sense that... I mean, it is an evil, in my opinion, to abuse the rights of another. That's an evil. Or a wrong, call it what you will, a moral wrong. But that's what they're doing. And they're going to keep doing it. And they're going, my God, people, are they good at this? It's time to up your game, folks. Your language, your communication. That's the only weapon you have. Jumping up and down and screaming and shouting and protesting. While that might help to a degree, it's education, language, use of language, interaction with your fellow man. Explain it to them. Explain what this means and what it has in store for them and for you. You might have paid off your house, your mortgage, you're living there. You think, great, now I'm retired, I'll have a nice little pension coming in. No. You might have a 4-bedroom house, 5-bedroom detached house on a farm somewhere. No. Government is going to select you, put you into... Think of Ballymun Flats the way it used to be when it was at its worst, right? Or some other complex somewhere that you know. And now stack 10 of them on top of one another and times 50 blocks of flats. And you'll be given flat 2B on floor 75, and it will be considered to be sufficient for your needs. And that's it. You'll be moved there. Someone else, some other family will be moved into what used to be your dwelling, what you busted your balls off your whole life to make and create, and it'll be handed to them. You'll probably never get to see it again. And you'll get old and you'll be put on the pathway to euthanasia. And no one will give a shit. And that's where it's going. So please think about that. And time is short. This won't change by hurting people. This will only change by educating, acknowledging, understanding and communicating. It's the only thing. You can't, it's like you can't bomb somebody to peace, folks. You know? You cannot use violence as a tool. It's not an effective tool for this type of change. Socialists, communists, they will use violence. And even they know, down through the years, it's not a very effective tool. It does work though. But if you attempt to do any of that now, They have all their systems in place, and they have plenty of cages waiting for you, folks. They're in charge. They've been brainwashing the Irish people through the college system, and people all over the world, for the last 50 years with leftist, communist propaganda. They're all the mainstream media of Ireland. They're all in this echo chamber. They don't even realise. They think because the echo chamber is quite large that it doesn't exist. They haven't found the walls of the echo chamber. They can't see them. They don't realise there's another way. And these so-called highly educated people, quite frankly, many of them have never had to graft, work, dig through shit and dirt and crap to earn a crust. So they don't really understand work. I mean, they have jobs, but they don't work. I've done all sorts in my life. Here I am here. Look. This is what's left over after me working, and I've now got to clean all this up and tidy it up and recycle it and all of that jazz. What am I? 54. But I've also worked in offices and whatnot. So when I worked in offices, I used to say to people, I don't work. I have a job, but I don't work. This is work. What I do now is work. Graft. It's different. And unless you've done it, unless you've suffered, you don't really get a full understanding, unless you've been in a position where you either get this job done. I had a situation a number of years back. I broke a bone in my hand. I was nailing down a hardwood floor. I broke a bone in my hand. It was 2 weeks to Christmas. I had to finish that job. There was no two ways about it. Our Christmas did not happen in my house. I nailed down that floor with a broken bone, and I couldn't use. I went to the doctor in the hospital, and he told me, well, I can't give you painkillers if you're going to do that, because he said if I give you painkillers and you can't feel the hand, you'll do more damage. So I said, well, strap it up as tight as you can, and he cast it and strapped it, and I did all sorts of things to it myself afterwards to reinforce it. But I got it done, but I cried like a child doing it, folks. I don't mind telling you. I was drinking fluids because there was that much tears coming out of me, but I had to do it. It had to be done. It's just the way of the world sometimes. When you're a grafter, feeling sick, tough shit, go to work. Your back sore, tough shit, go to work. It's tough shit. There is no sick days and all of that jazz. It just doesn't exist for you when you're a self-employed guy. So we're used to things, and that's why I think a lot of us are very careful about what we do. We have to be very careful about what we say. We don't want to upset customers. We don't want to lose jobs. So we're careful. And other people out there are very loose with their language, very loose with what they say and how they say it. I'd really love to see everybody get sharp with their language, folks. It's the only thing that's going to save us. Don't bother your arse arguing with lefties online, folks. They don't really argue with you anyway. Explain to people who are in the middle, neither left nor right. That's the secret. Middle Ireland is the secret here. If you want to prevent communism coming to Ireland in full, Middle Ireland, folks, that's who you talk to. The people who aren't far left and weren't far right, they're just the average Joe. Right, I'm going to bugger off. Talk to you soon.